Hey guys, and welcome to Sounds Like NYC, episode 65. We're here with a film composer, musician, Juan Dussan. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you for having me. How are you guys?
Very good. A
Yeah, we're
little
doing
bit,
good.
little stressed,
Yeah, a little tired,
a
but
little tired,
yeah,
but
the
we're good.
grind is real.
What is that?
Yeah. Why is that? We've been
Just
doing
life.
just life, yeah.
I understand.
Yeah. No, but
Hopefully
like,
it gets better though.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Just about time management, really. And I think every artist can feel like that too. You get too caught up with one thing, and then you know
yeah,
it happens.
yeah.
Absolutely.
But give us a little bit of background about who you are, what you do.
All right. How long do you want this answer, by the way? Long or
As
short?
long as you want.
Yeah.
All right. So my name is Juan Dussan. I am a film composer based in New York City. I went to NYU to do a screen scoring graduate degree, and I graduated back in May 2020.
Oh, wow. Just like me. Congrats.
That's great. Where did you go,
Anianta, SUNY Anianta.
and what did you study?
Music industry.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
Super cool.
bro.
No,
Thank
ask
you.
me. Ask me.
And yeah, so I'm originally from Colombia, and I lived in Colombia for pretty much like 22 years of my life. I was formerly trained in classical piano and music in general. And I also did a semester abroad in Michigan. I studied in Eastern Michigan University for a semester, then came back to Colombia, and then I wanted to pursue film scoring as a career since my two passions from very early on were photography and music. So I kind of wanted to combine that. And since I have a little bit of family around here in New York, I thought about coming here to study and keep nurturing that profession.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. So like I want to ask like why did you choose specifically film scoring and not just being like a individual artist like as a career path in terms of like a touring artist.
That's an interesting question. I guess I don't want that much attention.
Okay, I see.
Hmm.
And, film composers are kind of like behind the scenes. People usually know their names, but they don't usually know their faces,
Mhm.
which is kind of interesting. Um, but we're very important in the production of a film or a TV show or any kind of project. So I wanted to have to do something that was really important and felt really important, but not necessarily have that kind of like all the eyes looking at me, sort of.
Oh.
You say you do photography and music.
Yes, yes.
So, which one was the most difficult to learn, and which was the most gratifying?
Wow. Well, I've started learning photography first,
Oh,
and
really?
I actually started when I was around maybe 8 years old. I would
Wow.
take pictures with my dad's camera. I think it was a film camera, and I would make like videos with also like a cassette camera, which is like pretty old. But and then I kind of started learning how to edit those films in my computer. I would use like Windows Movie Maker and stuff like that. So it was more like videography more than photography. And then I slowly transitioned into like motion graphics and like I learned how to use a bunch of like Adobe software like Premiere and After Effects, and I did that while I was doing music as well because I started doing piano when I was 9, and I had the two things going on at the same kind of rate. But now your question was like, what was the most gratifying? I think it was music, honestly,
Why is
since I was able to share everything that I did to an audience, and that felt really, really nice.
So sorry, call from my mother, unfortunately. No, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry about that. Yeah.
that's a first.
That's the first on the podcast.
My mom never calls me, so
You're lucky. No, but that's like very, very, interesting because it's usually with like people that start out with like, music like at a pretty young age. It seems like they like only do music and
Yeah.
it's just that from the beginning. So it's like very interesting to see how like what you were doing before music kind of ultimately played back into music.
Right. Yeah, I guess it turned out to be more passionate. I turned out to be more passionate about the music and about sharing that music with audiences and my friends and people around me
Mhm.
was uh, was very easy to do, and I had some sort of facility to do that. So I pursued it as a career, but I never kind of I never stopped doing the other kind of thing. So I continued the photography. It's like one of my hobbies today, and they complement well each other. So I can get to photograph myself and do a lot of kind of like self promotion, self marketing for
Of
my
course.
Yeah,
art
dude.
career.
It saves
Yeah.
so much money.
Yeah.
It does, yeah.
But your whole like Instagram feed is just like so perfectly curated. And yeah, I
Thank you.
really I really appreciate it from a because I also do photography and music. So like you're like goals for me basically. Like oh
Oh,
my
really?
yeah,
That's super
like between
cool.
your
Thank you.
compositions, yeah, and like your photography skills, you're you're fantastic. But following that, um would you ever consider kind of like producing kind of like a multimedia type of like event or project where you like incorporate your own photos and your like own original music or like
After
film?
COVID, obviously.
Yeah, obviously, but like kind of like yeah, kind of like including film and like your own music, just like a passion project.
Absolutely. Actually, that is something that I've been thinking about since I released my first original solo album as a composer. It's called Voyage, and it's on Spotify and Apple Music. And it basically has a bunch of tracks that I composed that live within like a cinematic kind of world, but it's not really clear what that world is since every listener kind of like gives the album its whole story based on their own experiences. So I would love to at some point kind of like put that music to picture or to an animation to show it, whether it's live or like online. I think that would be super cool to do at some point,
Wow, yeah,
like a hybrid kind of work.
You ever
yeah.
feel like too spread thin?
What do you mean exactly?
Like, do you feel like sort of like your creative juices feel like they're running on E because you're doing so many things at once? Because I would feel like, even me when I was just doing, sort of like music and I was trying to add other stuff onto it. Maybe it's just my personality. I just wasn't able to do it because the way my brain works, they need to be 100% on one thing. Like, do
Totally.
you feel like
Yeah.
that?
I totally get that. I was that kind of person before. I remember that in my business card I had Juan Dussan, film composer, pianist, photographer, and a bunch of other things together. And I was like, I can't possibly do all of those things perfectly. So today I focus more on the composition, film scoring aspect, and then I kind of like have all these skills on the side that I use in order to improve that focus. So yeah, if I don't see that I have time to do one of those skills, then I would just like hire someone to do that. Like
That makes
But
sense.
music takes priority.
music takes priority 100% of the time.
Awesome.
But even if I like hired an animator to do or a producer to do a film that goes with my music, I would definitely like to have some creative decisions and creative direction in that
Right.
rather than like giving that to someone else.
Mhm.
Yeah. Speaking of like composing, like from like a practical point of view, do you feel like only like having the keyboard as your main interface to like compose music, like do you ever feel like it's like limiting? Cause I because I did see like a picture of you with a guitar, or like I think it was you, but it doesn't seem like you like really use guitar in your person, like in the way that you like make your music or make compositions.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say that it has limited me. I think it's actually a great tool to be able to play the piano. And if you want to be a composer, that's basically what you write on. And since I have an ability and a skill to use the instrument, I feel that I save a lot of time. But I'm gonna say that when it comes to writing other instruments, like for guitar or for string instruments like the violin, uh, it would definitely be a lot handier to play that, since it's really hard to like replicate that from a computer. You really want to record that in real life, and if I was able to just record it myself, that would be so much more gratifying. But you do you do what you do, and you do what you can. So um, in that case, I will ask my string player friends to help me out.
Yeah, I'm like the exact opposite where like I'm like primarily guitar
Yeah.
and I never took the piano classes seriously, unfortunately, when I was in college, and I'm just kicking myself in the butt every day because yeah, like I should have taken piano more seriously, and I'm doing my best to like relearn it now, but like I kind of wish I was in like I was like in like your position because I definitely finally understand just how versatile the piano can be in terms of like the bigger image because guitarists can kind of sometimes be up their own ass. I'm
Yeah, I get that. I lived with a guitar player
sorry.
for my first. But let me tell you, like whenever I write for guitar, this is like very normal in the film scoring world. It's very rare when you get to write for guitar, but when you do, you need a guitar player.
Yeah,
It's absolutely impossible to replicate that sound on a computer.
yeah,
So it was great to be able to collaborate with someone that close and to learn from the instrument.
yeah. Well, of course, guitar is the best instrument in the world, duh. Oh,
Who even
no
plays
competition.
pianos?
Yeah,
Who plays
yeah,
pianos?
who can make a career making piano? Nobody.
No, no one
String gang.
String game. I mean, pianos have strings too, right?
I don't know.
Technically, yeah.
Yeah, technically yes.
Technically, the pianos are plucked strings instruments.
Yeah, but
I'm stupid.
yeah. So can you like tell us if if you can what like what films or like projects that you've been working on lately?
Well, lately I've been working on three different short films, independent short films. One of those is called Floundering, and I can't really talk about it exactly because I
Yeah.
just wrapped that short, and it's hopefully going to get into festivals next year
Ooh.
because we did a lot of good work in it. And then I'm also working with two NYU alumni who are also like working on their thesis films,
Wow.
and hopefully that also gets some attention next year. With film, it's always kind of strange because you do a lot of work and then you have to wait so many months until you see it on the screen or you see it at a festival or you can even talk about it.
Mhm.
So, well, thankfully, one of the films that I scored last year called Amalie recently got a film festival official selection at the NFFTY, which is a very important festival among universities and colleges in the States. And that was really cool.
Awesome. Yeah.
What's been your favorite piece of work you've done so far?
Oh, wow. That is a hard question.
Putting on your spot.
Yeah, you're putting me on the spot. Um, I really love a short film I scored last year called Red Veil. First of all, because I thought that the whole plot was extremely compelling and very mind bending, but also because I got the chance to record with the Prague Film Orchestra
Wow.
remotely. So that was a lot of fun. And I recorded a chamber ensemble of strings and harp. And I really loved it. I wish I could get to record with them more often.
Wow, amazing. Speaking, so kind of like on like that end, like you've probably done, you know, dozens of like films at this point. Like, what are some like common cliches like within like composing for film that you try to like avoid?
Okay. I have a big list, I think.
Yeah, lay it on us.
Well, one of the main cliches that I try to avoid is writing music everywhere in the film.
Hmm.
and that's something that I guess many directors want.
Hmm.
They think that you got to have music everywhere, and if it's like a short film, like 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 6 minutes, or 10 minutes, then you need to have music all throughout the film, and that is not necessarily right. Um, you could do that depending on the project, but I don't think that that's that useful since the
Like,
music.
do you feel like it takes away from like the actual like piece of music that you're most interested in?
Probably, but I think it takes away from the reality of the film
Mm.
too. So, like, uh, music is supposed to underscore an emotional moment or something that is happening on screen, and sometimes directors want to underscore everything exactly as you are seeing it on screen, but music is supposed to tell you information that you are not seeing necessarily,
Mm.
information that might be implied in the film and you don't really realize it's there. So, or give you clues or stuff like that. So that's kind of like why I don't like to score an entire film. I would just do like cues.
Yeah.
Um, that's one of the cliches. Another cliche that I try to avoid is writing for like a full orchestra all the time. Because a lot of composers think that the only way of writing music for film is going as big as John Williams or Hans Zimmer all the time, which is perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with that. But again, when you're writing an independent film or something that is smaller in scale, the music can't really be bigger than the film, bigger than the picture. It can't feel bigger. It has to be smaller than what you're seeing on screen to support it.
Yeah. Wow, yeah, that's like definitely I guess this like conversation falls into kind of like the importance of kind of like is it called diegetic music and
Yeah.
kind of film and stuff like that. And I feel like
I don't know what that is.
it's so it's basically music that the character in the universe of the film is like actually listening to. So like
Mm.
Guardians of the Galaxy is probably like the most famous.
Right.
Yeah, so that sort of thing is stuff that I like love. Like have you like had the chance to like compose that kind of music, like music that like a character within the film is actually listening to?
Yes, I have had the chance to do that. In that film I told you about, Red Veil, we had this scene on the main character's bedroom. She's like on her computer, chatting with someone, and she's listening to this song from her computer, of course. But when I got the chance to do that track, it was great because I got to use some of the main themes of the film that are originally underscored, but I got to compose them in like a pop song, sort of.
Mm.
Nice.
So that was cool to do. But I don't get to do that very often because people want to license tracks, or some directors want to license maybe an indie band
Mhm.
Mhm.
and do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Do you have more fun doing that sort of stuff?
I think I prefer to do underscoring and non-diegetic music.
Why is that?
I don't know. I think I just connect more with it, with the drama that it generates. Like I'm good at reading emotions. I'm good at reading people's faces on screen and stuff like that. So I don't know. I'm just good at it, I guess.
Yeah. But so like sorry. So specifically like your own music, like do you ever have the chance to kind of like include your like your like own music, like say something that you've made in the past, like have you ever had the chance to kind of like slip it into a film that you've worked on?
Yes, that also happened with Red Veil.
Oh
I
wow.
really want to watch this yeah, film
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
It was kind of funny because I was still in school, and I had an orchestration class, and we had recording sessions almost bi-weekly. And I wrote this piece called Memories that you can listen on my website. And the director of Red Veil contacted me a few months after I published that piece online, and he was like, "I totally love this piece. I think this would go extremely well with my film. Can we develop a whole score based on this?" And we got to do that, but also we got to use the same track that I had written a few months in the past. So that was that time when I got to reuse one of my previous tracks. It's
Awesome.
not very often that it happens, really, because directors want, well, and collaborators specifically want something original
Yeah.
tailored for their projects. They might want something that sounds like something else, but not necessarily to be the same.
Yeah. Well, it probably makes your job easier when you could just take something that's already like
Copy
pre-made that you
paste.
paid and made it. Yeah, and just
Yeah,
probably like kind of like saves time,
Mm-hmm.
definitely. Yeah.
it does. Yeah.
Yeah, but like speaking of the music you've made within your own personal time, like your latest single, I love it so much. Like I was like listening to it earlier, and it
Yeah.
kind of reminds me of
What's it
kind of
called?
like I forgot the name. Do you mind
Voyage.
reminding me one more time?
Voyage.
Voyage. Okay, yeah, Voyage is definitely a great song, and it kind of reminded me of kind of like video game music in a sense. Like it's very ambient, and just reminds me of kind of like video game music, maybe like a level, like a very calming, or like a very yeah, just like a calming like undersea undersea level. But like I really like Voyage. Yeah.
Thanks, man. I appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Like a calm drowning or
No,
what?
no, no, like a calm. No, I don't know. It just feels it's
Almost like a meditation
atmospheric. Yeah,
session, right?
exactly,
Mm.
exactly. So, like, what was like the inspiration and the process of like creating that song?
That's a great question. Well, first of all, I wanted to create an album when I was thinking about this whole thing. At the beginning of 2020, I had this idea of creating an album, and I spent a lot of time thinking about the concept for it. And then when I actually got to write it, COVID hit.
Ah,
So yeah, so it was both great and bad. So it was bad because all the terrible things happening, but it was great because it gave me some sort of like a musical retreat. So I had the chance to be isolated. I had the chance to be fully creative in my room and to experiment with a lot of different topics. And that piece and the whole album of Voyage represents kind of like my musical journey up until this point, and it kind of like summarizes all my musical influences and establishes the sort of music style that I'm writing today. So that ambient kind of like combination with a little bit of epic, a little bit of indie, a little bit of orchestral, but a little bit of electronic too.
Right.
That whole mix is kind of like who I am today, and Voyage is the perfect representation of that, I
yeah,
guess.
yeah. We could take this time now to kind of like listen to like a short piece of a Voyage if you want.
Absolutely, yeah.
Awesome, awesome. So, hey guys, welcome back to this episode of Sounds Like NYC. You have just listened to Voyage by Juan Dussan, and I hope you guys like it.
Fire.
It was pure fire. I love no, like I really love it. It's like I love it. I love it. I really do. But yeah, let's like talk about some of your influences and like the way that you discovered your own voice within composing, or maybe you are still discovering that voice. But yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, one of my first influences in music, I would say, is the band Dream Theater.
Oh,
Uh,
okay. You're pro.
yeah, that is, and still today, it's one of the things that I listen to the most, like progressive metal, progressive rock, kind of.
Yeah,
That is kind of like my one side of the coin, one side of the spectrum, kind of influence for me, like a
definitely.
heavy kind of influence.
Yeah.
And then to the other side, we have a little bit of classical music, of course, since I studied that. One of my biggest influences in classical music is Scriabin and Ravel.
Mhm.
And then we go to the film music world, where some of my biggest influences have been, of course, Hans Zimmer, because I grew up listening to his scores.
Mhm.
Alan Menken, who wrote the score for probably all the Disney movies, you know.
Awesome.
And currently, some of my biggest influences are Nicolas Britell and Ludwig Göransson, who just scored the movie Tenet by Christopher
Oh,
Nolan.
yeah. I really want to see it. Too bad.
Incredible,
Yeah, too bad. The
amazing.
book's ending.
What are some good soundtracks for people who are, like, want to get into, like, this sort of music? Like, what would you recommend?
Well, I think I can recommend If Beale Street Could Talk by Nicolas Britell.
Hmm.
Um, of course, I would recommend the soundtrack of Tenet, since I just watched that. And my music taste is kind of like change every time I see something new. Um, but then I also love a soundtrack by Alexander Desplat called The Curious Case of Benjamin Button.
Oh, I never watched that movie.
Me neither.
It's a beautiful film. I love it. And yeah, I mean, I could talk about this all day long. I recommend 1917 by Thomas Newman, one of my favorite scores of last year.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so for the rest of this year, like what is your like workload looking like? Like are you like going to continue working on your own music, or just whatever like films come your way, or
The hustle. Really constantly just trying to look out for more collaborations, and obviously try to work with my previous collaborations again, since thankfully the majority of them have been successful. And I have many friends now that I gained in NYU through their collaborations with the film department. So right now, for the rest of the year, I am looking at maybe 3 or 4 films that are secure right now.
Mhm.
But I'm open to just more.
Yeah. I mean,
Whatever comes my way.
when you talk about like collaborations, is it just purely your like your like composition skills with like a filmmaker, or like
Exactly.
is it also like music on music, musician on musician, projects as well?
Well, I was talking about filmmaker with musician, but I also do some collaborations, musician to musician. That guitar player roommate I told you about, uh, I created an album with her. It's called 56th Street, since we lived in 56th Street.
Yeah.
And it's also on Spotify, available to listen. And yeah, that was a good collaboration I did with her, but that was purely like our own time. It was not kind of like work for
Yeah.
But that would be great to just like tour with that album at some point.
Yeah. So like what kind of music is it? Please tell me it's prog.
It's kind of prog, yeah. It has a lot of that for sure.
Oh,
It's kind of
definitely.
like a little bit of cinematic, electronic, and a touch of prog.
Oh, Ooh.
You're
Ooh.
having too much, you're having too much fun.
I'm having too much fun, dude. I love Prague so much. Like,
And the other cool thing about that album is that we were in quarantine when we composed it. So every day that we would sit down to write a new piece of music, we would take something that was related to the whole pandemic. So, like, for example, one day we created one track that was based off of the number of COVID cases in New York. And then we created like a chord progression with that, and then a melody, and then a whole track. And the other day we sampled the people cheering up for the frontline workers at 7 p.m. and we made that into an instrument in one of the tracks as well.
That's really
awesome.
cool.
Yeah. So, like, speaking of kind of like, because those are like, very like good examples of like kind of like drawing inspiration from like very, you know, very, interesting places. And
Yeah.
whenever, whenever you're facing writer's block, like, how do you try to like inspire yourself?
That's a great question. Uh, well, when I'm writing my own music, not necessarily for a film, it's all about going back to my roots, I would say,
Hmm.
going back to instinct and, something emotional that has happened to me or something that I feel I need to say through music.
Hmm.
When I am working on a film, I would say that a good way to get out of that writer's block is give it a break, a little break, and maybe go out for a walk.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I think that definitely helps me. Or also just watch the film again without music.
Ah, yeah, that must be so weird, like watching a like completely scoreless film, like
It's like
It
quiet.
is it
yeah,
is very weird,
yeah.
especially if it's a horror film.
Oh,
Oh yeah, all
so
that
much
dead
like empty
space.
space. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like kind of like watching, kind of like Friends without the laugh track. Have you ever did it? It's weird.
It's weird,
Like
yeah.
uncomfortable. It's like
It's not my favorite show.
well, what's your favorite,
Not Friends.
sitcom?
How I Met Your Mother is
How
really good.
yeah, yeah. So it's like
Yeah,
watching like How I Met Your Mother without the laugh track. Just like so much dead space. It's just like alien almost. It's like so foreign.
that's how it is.
Yeah,
Horror films without scores feel
yeah,
like comedies. So
yeah. Oh my god, I want to see like Nightmare on Elm Street without the score. That'll be
I'm
fun.
sure you can find it online somewhere.
Yeah. But like if you want, we could talk a little bit about how like being in New York City has like affected you and like how you feel like it's like inspired you, changed you,
Hmm.
affected you as a person, as a musician.
Yeah. How long have you been in New York City?
I've been here for 2 years. A
Only
little
two
bit more
years.
than 2 years, yeah.
Wow.
Wow. Where were you before?
Colombia.
Mm.
Wow. Wow.
It's a big
Wow.
jump.
Big change, yeah.
Culture shock.
Yeah, definitely culture shock.
You
I'm
know
just
what? I don't think so that much because New York is like a bunch of different cultures and a bunch of different things here.
Mhm.
And I come from a big city in Colombia, so it was not that bad of a shock.
Okay, that's good to know.
The prices,
What was that?
like the rent prices, weren't that big of a shock for you?
That is a shock, but
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm
I
saying.
was informed.
Yeah. Oh, you were informed
I was
before.
Oh.
informed prior to the fact. But since I have some family around here, I would visit them every other year. I would come
Mhm.
here to spend like the holidays or something.
Mhm.
So when I moved here, it was not that big of a shock for me. It didn't feel like a big shift had happened.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah. So
And I
like,
always knew that I wanted to come to New York and live here
mhm.
and, experience working in industries like Broadway, film, stuff like that.
Awesome. So like, how do you feel New York has like made you grow? Like, what is your experience in New York? Just like besides music, just like everyday life. Like, how has that changed you as a person ever since you've been living here?
Mm, that's a great question. Well, first of all, living by myself, so not with my parents. That's been like a whole change for me, and that has made me grown.
Hmm.
Going to NYU to a master's degree that is like very high stakes, spending a lot of time in that. Like New York City is a very hard city to live in. It's very expensive, but at the same time, the amount of culture and knowledge that I have gained from being here in just 2 years are incredible.
Mhm.
I don't think I would have ever felt like this back where I come from, since it's a different kind of like level of musical experience here.
Do
Yeah.
you see yourself going back?
Hopefully, I can get to stay. It's hard right now, since like visas and all that kind of stuff is kind of getting,
Imagine.
yeah, kind of getting messy.
Mhm.
But hopefully I get to stay. Who knows? Since the real industry that I want to work in is here, and well, specifically in LA, but also a little bit here in New York. I would love to stay here and keep working here if it's possible.
Yeah, you don't want to go to LA.
Yeah.
You don't like LA?
It's on fire.
Yeah, that whole coast is messy. You got earthquakes, you got wildfires.
No Instagram. No. What do you call those guys? TikTokers.
You got people from
Tourists.
Hollywood.
You got. Oh man! But before we end this episode of the podcast, I want to ask you a very weird question. But
Mm.
have you ever eaten a bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich before?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
That guy who came on, he's been here for like 10 years and he's never had one.
Yeah. So like, we just had to know.
That is not possible.
Yeah.
That's what we said. He said food was so expensive. I was like, no, bacon, egg, and cheese
No,
costs
bacon,
like
please eat
$3
one
maybe.
as soon as possible. Yeah.
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 That's standard. Yeah.
Yeah,
But like, do you have like a favorite deli like in the area? Yeah. Speaking of which, like which part of the city do you live in?
I lived in Hell's Kitchen for almost 2 years, and I moved last July to Hudson Yards.
Oh, okay,
Oh,
cool.
fancy schmancy.
Yeah. But we are both very happy to know that you've eaten bacon, egg, and cheese. I'm very happy for that. I mean, you have to. No, if you're in New York City, like
It's such a meme, bro.
no, but it is essential to life here, in my opinion.
Agree with you both.
Thank you. Oh,
So what would you want to leave with?
Bacon, egg, and cheese.
any I guess to aspiring composers or musicians in general, like do you have any tips, any advice, yeah, something to
But-
that degree?
Yeah. Well, a tip for upcoming and growing composers is that they should always try to say whatever they feel and whatever their emotions tell them in the most original way they can through music, to better tell stories and to make people's hearts feel warm. I think that's and also always like striving for more and better collaborations with other musicians or filmmakers or people like you guys.
Thank you so much. Yeah,
Appreciate that.
yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for coming on. It's
thank you so
weird
much.
times we're in right now, but I'm glad we could accommodate you.
Thank you guys. I
Yeah.
appreciate that a lot. Thank you for having me.